Have you ever found that you've eaten a perfect low FODMAP diet and you still have gut symptoms? Well, today I am answering your questions on top IBS triggers that are not FODMAP related. And it may come as a surprise, but there are quite a few of them, which is exactly why Ignite really focuses on what we call the 4 pillars of gut health in IBS management. Because sometimes it's beyond food, or sometimes it's foods that aren't FODMAP related. Ultimately, we want to take a look at your whole lifestyle and really figure out what could be triggering your symptoms. So before I jump into it, as a reminder, I host Ask a Dietitian Live every Monday at 9 a.m. MST. And if you guys have questions, you can just ask them in the chat and I'll answer them. Or you can shoot me an email if you're more comfortable at info@ignitenutrition.ca, and I will do my best to answer your questions on the next Facebook Live. As well, a reminder that today, April 9th, is the last day you can get early bird tickets, $15 with $5 going to the Canadian Digestive Health Foundation Research Fund for my Calgary local event on April 17th. So Calgary, if you have not gotten tickets, get your tickets today. Okay, let's jump into it. So a lot of patients come to me and they've been working on their low FODMAP diet, doing really well, but still having fluctuations in their symptoms. And they get really frustrated, and then they start seeking answers in the food that they're eating. So they're like, oh, well, I had chicken this day, so it must be chicken. Or I had oatmeal this day, so it must be oatmeal. When in fact, sometimes we really do have to look outside of food for IBS triggers, because I think sometimes we give food more credit than it's due. Nutrition is really important, and I like to say that I'm a food first dietitian. However, there are lots of things that can influence your IBS symptoms. So some things outside of food that can affect your IBS symptoms. One of them is stress. And so, like I had mentioned before, our 4 pillars of gut health, one of them is focused on mindfulness-based stress reduction. Our brain and our gut talk to one another all day long, and they send cars up and down that highway of nervous system. And so your brain sends about 10%, sends signals down to your gut, and your gut sends signals back to your brain. So 90% comes from your gut and 10% comes from your brain. And so in IBS, sometimes those symptoms are or those signals are sent inappropriately, or maybe are misconstrued or get lost in translation, or maybe the message doesn't get sent at all, which can then alter how you perceive your symptoms. So if your body's sensing pain when in fact it's just regular digestion, it sends signals to your brain, hey, this is kind of painful, and may exacerbate how your symptoms are feeling, and then may in turn alter digestion, because your brain's like, okay, well, something's wrong, so let's change how we're doing this. So we want to try to change that conversation between your brain and your gut, and stress management is really key. So I know I've talked about it before, but mindfulness-based stress reduction, cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, meditation are all evidence-based in helping to reduce how you perceive IBS symptoms, because if you have IBS, I'm sure it's relatable, and most people can find this relatable, is that we're excellent at catastrophizing. So my example is always like, oh my gosh, if I spend an hour in the toilet, I'm not going to be able to get this particular piece of work done. And if I don't get this particular piece of work done, I'm not going to be able to do this next thing. And then my boss is going to be mad at me. And then I'm going to be fired. And then all of this stuff's going to happen. And then it's going to be the zombie apocalypse. And so we tend to ruminate, we tend to catastrophize, and it really tends to exacerbate our symptoms. So by practicing presence and observing your symptoms with non-judgment, as well as tying self-compassion in there, you can really help to reduce how often you get that far ahead of yourself, and help to reduce the judgment around when you do get that far ahead of yourself. So that's the first thing that is not not food related, and it's a really important one. The second one is eating too quickly. So I know a lot of my IBS patients, and even myself, are guilty of this, but we're really hungry, we scarf down our meal, and then we eat past the point of fullness. maybe we eat too much, or maybe we swallow too much air. Plus, the first piece of digestion actually occurs in your mouth. So the actual mechanical chewing, plus with your saliva, there are different types of enzymes that help to start the breakdown process of the food. If you inhale your food, you kind of miss that opportunity. So we want to slow down, we want to eat a bit more mindfully, and I find practicing presence before you go to eat really is a good way to check in and slow down with your eating. Sometimes putting your fork down between each bite, or really taking in how the food tastes helps. Not eating with distractions, so making sure you get rid of TV, cell phone, and really just commit to actually eating your meal and enjoying it. So that's the second piece of things. The next trigger I find is meal spacing. So a lot of my patients eat a really light breakfast, maybe a small lunch, and then by dinner they're ravenous and they eat really large portions and then maybe eat, snacks in the evening. And they find that their symptoms are way worse in the evening. A lot of times I find meal spacing is very much tied to that. Even if you eat low FODMAP, if you have really large portions of things or you eat a lot at once, it's a little bit stressful for your gut, or it might end up being high FODMAP because of how you've stacked things. So making sure that you space your meals throughout the day. In some patients, maybe that's 3 meals, depending on what's going on with their gut. Having that extra time between meals may be helpful in IBS-C, so more constipation dominant patients. However, in patients that tend to, eat very large portions in the evening, sometimes snacking helps as well. So sometimes we'll add some snacks in there. And so spacing your nutrition out throughout the day doesn't mean that you get too much all at once. I think we're on to our fourth trigger is with hormones. So a lot of people don't realize, especially in women, but hormone cycles impact your digestion. And people always wonder, why they always get, constipated a couple days before their menstrual cycle and then diarrhea during, or sometimes vice versa for people. And so starting to figure out, is that something that occurs in you? And is there a way we can strategically plan? Maybe it is being a little bit more tight with your FODMAP intake during your menstrual cycle, or maybe it's making sure that you take some bulking agents during your menstrual cycle or before, whenever that symptom change onsets. So working with a dietitian to figure that out can be really helpful. The fifth trigger that isn't food related is with sleep. Guys, sleep is so important. I think it's more important than any other intervention we do, besides maybe the mental health piece of things, which sleep of course ties to. So we really want to make sure that you're getting restful sleep. We want to be getting, our 7 to 8 hours a night. Some people need more, some people need less, but really making sure we get uninterrupted sleep. A lot of people may suffer from sleep apnea, may suffer from insomnia, may suffer from that ruminating thoughts, not happening with food, maybe happening with, going through everything that happened in your day or all the stuff you have to do tomorrow. Lots of times there is evidence to support that mindfulness helps to improve sleep habits. So a lot of times I'll suggest that to patients. As well, sometimes therapy can also help you to work through some sleep challenges. So cognitive behavioral therapy is the one I'm most familiar with for sleep issues, but making sure that that problem is solved, because with less sleep, it can tend to impact our hormone cycle, impact cortisol, impact how you perceive symptoms, impact how much you eat or what sorts of foods you choose. So we really do want to consider that. So those are my 5 non-food triggers for IBS. How well do you manage them? The next ones are all food related, but they're not FODMAPs. So some triggers for food can include things like spicy foods that can bother some people's GI tracts. I know for a fact when I went to Thailand, the spice and my gut did not get along. And I love spicy food, but somebody who has upper and lower GI issues is the no-go. Alcohol is a big one, and I don't think we talk enough about alcohol, but alcohol, we're so obsessed with managing all these other things in our diet and pinpointing these random food additives and worrying about, crazy things. But the fact of the matter is nobody talks about the fact that North America consumes far too much alcohol and oftentimes in excess. So we really need to start having conversations around alcohol use. And the fact of the matter is alcohol impacts your gut health 100% for sure. There are no questions about this, whereas sometimes we hold on to these like random food things that we're obsessed with controlling when in fact we ignore a very big component. Alcohol impacts your mucus lining in your gut. It impacts the health of the cells in your gut. It causes inflammation, and it can absolutely trigger symptoms in some people. So consider the role of alcohol and how that impacts your IBS symptoms. A lot of times, if my patients were struggling to get things under control and they drank, a glass or two of wine at supper and maybe a couple drinks on the weekend, I suggest we abstain for about a month's time and see, can we improve your gut health from that perspective? Because alcohol absolutely damages your gut. Doesn't mean you can't drink it. Entirely honest, I'm sure you guys follow me on Instagram. I drink alcohol. I just want to be judicious in how often you drink it and how that impacts your symptoms and your quality of life. The next thing is medications. So guys, medications can really impact your gut symptoms. Make sure you talk with your doctor or pharmacist about the role of the medications you take in impacting your IBS symptoms, because it can for sure make an impact, especially my patients who are on metformin. Definitely a big impact on your gut. So you can talk to your doctor or pharmacist about strategically using that, about ways to reduce symptoms, all of that sort of stuff. And the other food thing is high-fat foods. So high-fat foods can exacerbate anybody's symptoms, especially, sometimes my diarrhea-dominant people tend to get more diarrhea. However, constipation-dominant people tend to have their bowels slowed down, and that's because it takes more work to break down fat. So your body is working away at that. It slows down your digestion, which can exacerbate constipation. So lots of high-fat foods can definitely impact that, even foods that are healthy that are high-fat. So consider the role of, how much, hopefully, you're not eating too much avocado in the low FODMAP diet, but after reintroduction, if you're consuming a lot of avocado, nuts and seeds, high-fat coconut milk, all of that sort of stuff, even though it's healthy, that can definitely impact how quickly or slowly your bowels move. And of course, the common sense high-fat foods like fried foods, baked goods, etc. So those are my top 9 triggers that are not FODMAP related. They're, food for thought. Some of it isn't food for thought, but hopefully that helps. I know there's some people on live right now. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. If you don't have questions, thank you so much for showing up today. It's a little bit of a small crowd, but that's just fine. So again, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, or you can email me at info@ignitenutrition.ca if you're not comfortable asking on Facebook, and I will try to answer at my next Facebook Live. Lastly, April is IBS Awareness Month. Today is April 9th if you're watching the replay, and it is my last day for early bird tickets for my Taking Charge of Your Gut Health, Understanding and Managing IBS event in Calgary. So if you want to attend that, and I strongly suggest you should, myself as well as Dr. Andy Liu are speaking on IBS management and gut health. It's going to be a great event. There's great food. I'm just confirming the catering order today, and there is awesome swag, and it is also for a good cause. $5 of each ticket sold is being donated to the Canadian Digestive Health Foundation Research Fund, which is going to help to support research in digestive issues. So guys, there's like 101 reasons to come to this event. I will leave the link in the comment section. Otherwise, it's pinned to the profile on the Ignite Nutrition Facebook group. Or if you go to ignitenutrition.ca, there's a notification bar at the top where you can get your tickets. I would love for you guys to come. Again, I have to confirm catering today. I pushed it off from Friday till today. So please, 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 if you're coming, get your tickets today so that I make sure everybody has food, which is, of course, the most important reason for going to an event. Also the information, right? Okay, so I hope to see you guys all there in Calgary, April 17th at 6 p.m. for our Taking Charge of Your Gut Health, Understanding and Managing IBS event. And I hope to see you guys all next week for Ask a Dietitian Live. Bye.